Big Core himself, Cory Sandhagen. Hello, Cory. How are you?
What's up, Ariel? How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Great to talk to you. I have to say, I'm a little bit starstruck talking to you right now because, the social media game is just on fire right now. I'm so envious of what you're putting out that I put you on this pedestal. I feel like you've distanced yourself from us regular MMA folks. You're killing it right now. So kudos to you.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man. Yeah. It took me a little bit to kind of figure out how to do social media and have it feel like it was my own voice and like me being myself. But I think I kind of figured it out.
Is anyone helping you with any of this?
Yeah, I have just one of my amateur fighters who I just want to throw some cash to kind of help out in his upbringing in the sport and yeah, so I just kind of pay him to make all the videos and then I post them and that's it. That's that.
It's quite the tandem. Did you feel like you had to do this knowing that you would be out for a bit and you wanted to just kind of, I don't want to say stay relevant, you don't strike me as that type of person, but just kind of not completely disappear?
Well, I mean, I certainly want to stay relevant, yeah, I mean, people forget about you really quickly. So I definitely want to stay relevant. It's kind of been like a fun little avenue to explore too. I really I'm interested in people and psychology and like cultures and all of that stuff and just learning more about like different parts of, existing. And I think that it's been like really fun for me to try to, just like navigate the social media world a little bit and figure out how to do it like me and all of that stuff. So yeah, a piece of it is me being relevant. A piece of it is me being really bored, wasn't able to train as much before. And then a piece of it is like, yeah, me having some fun.
Okay, so I want to circle back to that in a moment. But first, last we spoke, you were about to have surgery, about to go on the shelf. How are you feeling? And is there a timetable for when you can be 100%?
Yeah, I'm great. It healed really, really quickly. I was really happy with the amount of skills that I was able to add into my tool belt in this time that I've been hurt. I've been training, like fairly hard on it. I still have to baby it here and there. It gets kind of sore towards the end of the week, and then it being a lot colder in Colorado now, it kind of gets like a little bit more sore in the cold, which is interesting. But yeah, healing's going really good. I think that I could probably feel really comfortable jumping into a camp here in the next maybe like month or so. So I mean, you add 2 months on top of that. I think 3 or 4 months from now, I think that I'll be in a really golden spot and ready to perform under the lights again.
In those early days, post surgery, and you had one surgery, right?
Actually, I had two. So I had the tricep repair, and then 2 months after that, I had an elbow scope because the elbow scope is more or less what was causing a bunch of inflammation in
Wow.
that joint that made it get infected. And then after it got infected, that's kind of what made the joint really weak going into the fight, which caused the tricep to tear even more. So, yeah, so I got two surgeries, and so now this thing is feeling pretty good. It goes a lot straighter than it ever has, and yeah, I'm close to 100% strength in it, so it's going all good.
Okay. Well, that is great to hear. I didn't know about the second one. So uh, you're rolling and you're very close to potentially achieving a dream, and now you have to take this big step back. How did you deal with that mentally?
Uh, Man, I kind of haven't given up hope on being able to fight for the title next. So it hasn't taken too much wind out of my sails. It was a bummer, I hate to talk about and feel like I'm giving a ton of excuses about the last fight or whatever, but it was a really bummer that I had to navigate an entire fight on a really big stage with such a significant injury in the fight, which, just was not fun. And I know that, in this sport, you want one big fight going into the title fight so that there's some momentum. The UFC wants that. I want that. And just, due to an injury, I kind of wasn't really able to do that level of performance. So, all that set aside, that's kind of something completely out of my control. If I could go back and do it again, it would be tough, but you got to just walk away with the win in some situations. And, when you have to fight with one arm, that's just what you got to do. So it is a little bit tricky, but I still see a lot of argument for me fighting for the belt. I think I beat Cheeto less than 365 days ago. Me and O'Malley is definitely one of the most exciting fights that you can certainly make maybe in the UFC, like in the top 5, top 10 of most exciting matchups that could potentially happen. You have two guys in their prime that have really exciting styles. That would be an awesome matchup. So I have a lot of hope, man. I feel like the fans really want to watch me and O'Malley fight if he comes out with the win. And then if Cheeto wins, that's an easy argument for myself too, being that I 5-0'd him, less than 365 days ago. So
Are you hoping that Henry beats Merab? Because I think you can, I think you're pretty, you're pretty fair. Merab's winning streak is quite impressive. If he beats Henry Cejudo, it might be a tough argument. But if Cejudo beats him, now that's out the window.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, Merab's done a lot, like he's been working really hard. Like I said, the kind of only arguments that I have over Merab, if Merab were to win, is I did just beat Cheeto not too long ago. And then me and O'Malley is just a banger of a fight and a really exciting fight in general. But I do completely understand that from Merab's point of view, of course. As far as Cejudo goes, if Cejudo does win, I think that as like a fight fan and just a fan of the UFC in general, what makes me lose interest in Cejudo is it feels like it's kind of like him fighting for the belt after coming back and kind of being granted a title shot immediately, losing, and then having one more fight and then getting a title fight after that. I'm not super stoked on that. I also think that Cejudo does a lot of this stuff for himself, which kind of like makes me lose interest in him just as a fan. I don't want Cejudo to win the belt and then just take off again afterwards. Like that's disinteresting to me. I would rather it be one of these guys that's really in their prime, like me, a Merab, a Cheeto who's fighting for the belt, an O'Malley who's young in his age as well. So, the Cejudo fight I think is a lot less interesting to fight for the belt after if he does beat Merab. So, yeah, I mean, if I'm rooting for someone, it's Cejudo in that fight.
I actually feel like the best combo is a Cejudo win over Merab. This is for you, of course. Cejudo win over Merab and a Suga win over Cheeto, because I feel like because the way your fight went against Cheeto, maybe if he wins, they'll say, okay, let's give it to someone else because it was so, it was so dominant. But the O'Malley Sandhagen fight is fresh. We've never seen it. So I feel like those two results would be the best in your favor. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, like I said, I think that both of them, it's an easy sell. But yeah, especially O'Malley, man, like that's the fight that the fans really want to see is me and O'Malley. Like they've been asking for that for years. And then that's just like has fireworks written all over it. So that would be an amazing fight. I also, I've been in the top 5 for the last 3 or 4 years of my career, and the only shot that I got at the belt was on a short notice thing, like halfway across the world. So, like I don't want to say I deserve or I earn it, but I feel like I've done my piece and it would be nice to like finally get my fair crack at fighting for the title, especially it being against one of the guys that has one of the bigger names and it just being an exciting matchup stylistically too. So, I'm sold on it.
Yes. No, you're doing a great job of selling us. By the way, do you regret taking that fight against Petr Yan in Abu Dhabi?
Oh, no, absolutely not, man. The amount of information that I gathered after losing that fight was, like super important to the rest of my career. It's the reason that I was able to beat Song in a pretty decisively way too. Like him and Song are fairly close to being the same archetype. So, the way that I had to face Song after learning all of those lessons against Yan, I believe is the reason that I beat that guy. And it was a really important learning lesson for me. And I definitely don't regret it.
Okay. And so your feelings aside, because you're so good at breaking this stuff down, I'm just curious, how do you think the Merab Cejudo fight goes and how do you think the title fight goes?
Yeah, the Merab Cejudo, they're both actually really interesting. I do think that Henry is a better striker than Merab, and I think that their wrestling is going to cancel each other out. I think that Henry's also a more aggressive, more like I want to hurt you type of fighter. And Merab isn't really that type of guy. Merab is more of like a gamey, like let me get you tired, wear on you type guy. But Merab doesn't really have like the personality to want to really get in there and like damage someone's body really bad. And I think that Cejudo has that over him. And when the wrestling cancels each other out and you're talking 15 minutes, and I think that Henry has much better striking than Merab does, I think that Henry will, come away with that win. As far as O'Malley and Cheeto goes, I think that one's really, really interesting because their puzzle pieces don't match up very well against each other. Like O'Malley needs a certain type of response in his opponent in order to look really good. Like he needs you to come into his space. He needs you to make a mistake in order for him to capitalize on it. That's how he's won or knocked out a lot of the people in his fights. Like take Sterling, for example. Sterling made a silly mistake just trying to be too aggressive, and O'Malley capitalized on it, and he does that incredibly well. But Cheeto doesn't do any of those things. Cheeto protects himself really well. He's kind of a defense-oriented guy, even though he kind of like comes off a little bit more of like an aggressive personality. His fighting style is definitely not that aggressive. So that's really interesting because I don't think that Cheeto is going to just march forward and make a giant mistake that Sean O'Malley is going to be able to capitalize on, which, like I said, he's really good at doing. So I don't think Cheeto is going to make many mistakes. I think Cheeto definitely has a lot of power inside of him, and I'm hoping it's going to be an exciting fight. On paper, it's going to be like in my head, I kind of see it like it could be a soccer match where it's two guys playing a really positional game, not making a lot of mistakes. And then maybe a big goal happens here and there, and then maybe it doesn't. But I kind of foresee the fight being like that. I hope it's a little bit more exciting than that. But neither one of those guys have super exciting styles outside of the athleticism in O'Malley and then the power that Cheeto has. So that would kind of be my analysis on those two fighting.
And ultimately, who do you lean towards in that title fight?
I think O'Malley checks the boxes of what a better striker is, just as far as athleticism goes, defensively. Like he just checks more of those boxes because it's not going to be a grappling and wrestling match. So those two just completely cancel each other out almost fully. And I think that O'Malley checks more of the boxes of what a good striker is. Cheeto has a chance, of course, but if you look at Cheeto's history, if you don't let him catch you, he won't beat you. And that's how I was able to beat him. Cruz was beating him. Frankie was beating him. And then they just got, they caught later in the rounds because either they lost focus or they got tired or whatever. I just didn't make that mistake. And as long as O'Malley doesn't make that mistake, I think that he'll like to win that fight.
Fascinating. And fascinating times at 135. And just yesterday, I saw a tweet from a guy you were supposed to fight, but then he had to withdraw, Umar Nurmagomedov, saying like, I'm back, I got to fight, thank you, Sean Shelby. And so I was just wondering, are they trying to rebook that one? You have clearly stated you're holding out hope that you'll be next. Have they approached you about rebooking that one?
We talked about it. I actually didn't know that he had a fight scheduled. It's not against me. So
okay.
I don't know who it's against, but yeah, the Umar one was a little bit of a tough one because I do feel like I was playing ball for the UFC by, giving him a shot when he's only 4 fights into his career and the guy pulls out of more fights than he's been in. Not to hate or just be, that's just the truth of the matter. Like when you're talking like, hey man, like I make a lot of money for these fights are really important. And this guy pulls out of a lot of fights. That's a little bit of a tough sell for me, and also he's way, way down in the rankings. And like I said, I've been in the top 5 for the last 3-4 years now in my career, and Umar is just kind of entering in, and I'm on a 3-fight win streak. So it was a tough sell, but I played ball with him. I'm not fighting him next. Good luck in his next one. I don't really know who it is. I tried to kind of think earlier who it might be because I know a lot of the top guys are all booked. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what he looks like against one of the bigger players in the division.
Do you think it's weird that they're pushing him? Like he's not even in the top 10, but yet he seems to be linked to top 5 guys like yourself. Why do you think that is?
There's famous guy leverage, I won't be around the bush. Like there's famous guy leverage. I'm trying to acquire some famous guy leverage. I think maybe I should start hanging out with rappers and, maybe making myself look less like a normal dude than what I do already, So maybe that'll be my 2024, rebrand is I'll get some tattoos on my face. I'll color myself and I'll start hanging out with some rappers. But that it's just the nature of the sport. Like this is where sport and entertainment mix. And, a lot of people watch sports for the beauty of it. And then a lot of people watch sports for the drama of it. And it's easier to understand drama than it is to understand beauty. And, so that's just the nature of everything. And, he has famous guy leverage. Good on him. I'm going to try to scoop up some of that famous leverage this year so that I can be in a more, so that there's no questions like, hey, Cory fights for the belt next. So I'm not going to act crazy or do anything like that. I'm still be myself. But, that's a piece of the social media stuff and, all of the side games that you got to play inside the big adventure.
Well, kudos to you because I like the path you're on, whatever kind of leverage you want to call it. Your YouTube channel is great. And I see you doing sit-down interviews and you're talking about the psychology of the game. Forgive me for not remembering the latest one that you posted, talking about psychology and whatnot of the fight game. Like, no one's doing this. I don't see a lot of fighters doing this type of stuff. The social media stuff is one thing. To do, like, actual sit downs, produce nicely and all that. What is pushing you to do this? Why are you doing this?
I'm a little bit more of a deeper guy, just kind of by nature. A lot of that is my upbringing. I grew up I'm not religious anymore, but I grew up in a fairly religious household, but not like not an unhealthy one, a very healthy one. And it taught me to think a little bit deeper about life and to just question a lot of things and, like question why we're here and question things outside of a lot of like material successy type things. So it made me, I think, a little bit more of like I just want to help people and like leave my stamp on the earth and make sure that it's a positive one before I take off. And a piece of like me doing instructionals and doing YouTube stuff is one, I love all of the facets and everything that has to do with MMA. And that's like one of the ways that I can kind of give back to this thing. Like I said, before I go and take off, because in 5-6 years, no one's going to remember me,
No,
or
that's not true.
At least significantly, and I'm okay with that. There'll be a new shiny toy that everyone can focus on and that'll be fine. But for me, man, like I especially with the sports psychology stuff, especially with the mental health kind of stuff, like I know how much it can suck to have like a human experience sometimes. And I just kind of want to like help people get through that thing as much as I kind of can. And I know my whole world has been sports. And so if I can help people do sports in a more peaceful and helpful way where they don't need to have a ton of pressure on their shoulders and have a bunch of, like just unpeace walking through life, then I would like to give that to them.
Your website is very impressive too, because you put out these tutorials. Is it Cory Sandhagen MMA.com, right? That's the URL?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah,
that's where I sell the instructions.
And so it's great. Yeah, the instructionals are great. But I have to ask you about, because something that I'm often thinking about when I'm reading your Instagram captions are what is prompting you and what's really going on that is leading to you to write these things. So can I read you a couple of them and maybe you could peel back the curtain for us for a little bit? Here's one from January 5th. 5 days in, no AI sex machines are killing us. The election is safely a few seasons away. The sky isn't raining down acid, shit, piss. The electric cars haven't started a gang and currently are not selling drugs to kids. We're alive, lads. Breathe it in. It could get bad, but for now, you're safe. Doom scrolling in between YouTube commercials in a warm bed. Enjoy it. It's the only thing you got. Love you. Peace. What prompts you to actually write that? Like to put that all together? Where are you? What is the catalyst?
I think it's really easy to get sucked into, and I know just speaking from personal experience, I've cared about something so deeply for the last 15 years of my life, which is trying to be a world champion. And I care about it so deeply. And I get sucked into the whole of trying to succeed in something so passionately that it's very easy to lose sight of the fact that, the world is a big, complex place. And my part in MMA, which is a small part in sports, which is a small part in all of life and all of culture and the entire earth in general, it sometimes feels really good to just take a refreshing sip of water that isn't so zoomed in and sucked in. And I know that a lot of people feel like that. That's, I think, where a lot of anxiety comes from, a lot of depression comes from, which, like I've had my fair share of going back and forth with in my life. And I just want to try to help people see things from a little bit more of a wider lens because it feels good, man. Like it feels really good. It's like staring at a beautiful landscape in nature. There's just something about zooming out that feels really good and really natural. And I think that it's a really missing piece in society and in culture now, especially, just because the world changes a lot. So yeah. I just, I try to get people to, get away from the, being super hyper focused into the motivational speaker and being motivated and crushing stuff and doing stuff and just reminding people that it's cool just to, be alive and exist sometimes too.
I love that. And that could obviously be applied to anyone from any walk of life. I'm wondering because, I too, I get super high, get super down. I try to stay in the middle. I try to have like daily wins where I'm bettering myself. Is there something that you do to when you feel like you're getting down that you do to zoom out and to feel better? Is there something that you do that really helps?
Uh, Yeah, I mean, I like writing. I like reading. I like learning things. I used to meditate a lot. I used to do hypnosis stuff a lot, and I know that that's kind of like the go-to trendy things to work on yourself. But there's also like, man, I don't think that there's too many things that make me genuinely more happy in life sometimes than just putting on my headphones and going on a bike ride. Like
Mm.
sometimes sometimes I'm riding my bike, listening to music, and being like, if I was trapped in this 30 seconds for the rest of my life, it would be literally heaven on earth. And I think that you just have to kind of find out what that is for yourself and just be able to access that area, whether it be through activity, whether it be through meditation or whatever type of stuff you want to do that through. I think that that can go a long way. But I also would say that sometimes you just got to ride the wave. Like life is not like this like consistent thing like this. It would be boring if it was that way. It's a bunch of highs and a bunch of lows, and they neither one of them lasts forever, and that's kind of just the that's like the human experience. You can't get around that. You can get pissed off about it, but that's not doing anything. So that's just the way that it is. Just find something that kind of brings you back to peace and figure out what that is and do it. And if that doesn't work for you, then just ride the wave.
I love that. I want to read you one more. I'm not trying to embarrass you here. It's almost like me listening to my interviews. I can't
That's
do
okay.
it. But this stuff is great. This is another one from a week ago. Every once in a while, the plane ride just hits, man. All of us on this flying tube, some happy, some pissed, some too stoned, some reading. Most are watching Love Island, holding in a poopy. We're all on this flying tube together, guys. You don't gotta be nice, but if you don't recline your seat back a half of an inch, I'll for sure not appreciate it like I should. I'll tell you that much. If the tube crashes, I'd like to think we are saying to ourselves, man, I did everything I could. Instead of making a poopy pee in our pants while we scream ourselves to a fiery death, happy Saturday, peace. What prompts, and I think you're on a plane when you write this because the picture is you in a plane, but like what prompts you
Uh,
to think like this in that moment?
same type of thinking, man. Like, yeah, man, just like the idea that this whole like existence to me is just so incredible and so wild and just unbelievable sometimes. And I think, like I said, man, like we're only used to what we're used to. But if you took a person from 200 years ago and then teleported them to today's day and age, they would be completely fascinated by the idea of us all transporting to what would take months or years to get to a place, and then you're just there in a couple hours. I don't know, man. I just like thinking about how unbelievable this whole world is, and it's just fun for me. And like I said, it makes it a lot cooler for me, especially being a really zoomed in, passionate, ambitious guy who really only cares about one or two things in life, and that's being a world champion, being a good husband. And it feels good to sometimes zoom out of those two things and just like reflect on how awesome it all is without those two things.
Was there a point in your career where you were reluctant to show this side of yourself, and now you obviously feel comfortable enough in your skin to where you don't have to put on a front, and it's very well received because I see the comments. People like this, like seeing this true side of you, and so I'm just wondering when when you decided like, hey, let me just be me, and you get to reap the benefits.
Yeah, it was weird. A part of it is just getting older and learning more about myself, and then a part of it is a confidence factor too, where, um, yeah, it's not, like when you're trying to learn something, typically what you do is you try to replicate what someone else is doing, and then once you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get the rules of this game, I get the rules of this culture, and now I can kind of express my own identity inside of it instead of just trying to replicate. I think that I'm at that point in my career where I don't really feel like I need to fit into a mold. Sometimes the MMA molds, especially, yeah, I won't say especially right now, but sometimes right now I don't really love too much the culture of the MMA and the direction that it can sometimes go into. So I just sometimes just try to be a breath of fresh air and remind people that this sport doesn't have to be, like a bunch of high school boys kind of arguing at each other and making really obscene, not cool comments to each other about, what they've gone through in life, or, like any kind of vulgar statements that sometimes get made about stuff. And I just try to be the breath of fresh air, like I try to be the balance bringer in what I feel like can be a very negative thing sometimes, not all the time, of course. but sometimes it can. And like I said, I just try to bring a little bit of balance to this thing and remind people that there's some cool, positive, normal people like myself that are just trying to achieve something awesome. And you don't got to be some wild personality in order to do so. You can 100% be yourself and lean into that and just let that be the way that you want to be.
And maybe that's it, Cory. Maybe that's why I'm harping on this so much. The last couple of months have been pretty damn dark in this sport at times, and times where you're like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Where's the appeal? And maybe that's it. I think you just nailed it. I think you just gave me the answer that I was looking for. You are the antithesis of all of that, and so it feels what you're doing and saying and writing isn't. You're not reinventing any kind of wheel. You're not. You're not figuring out like the cure for cancer, but it is so different than what we've been getting the last couple months that it feels incredibly unique and refreshing. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
And by the way, the merch is tremendous as well. I'm told that
you like it?
Yeah, I like the hat. I like the hoodie. Is it sold out or is it available right now?
So my mom actually runs it for me. So sometimes she does a good job and sometimes she doesn't. So there might be some sold out stuff, and then there might not be. But I try to load it up when I have a fight. So probably here in the next, hopefully, month or two, I'll hear about who it is that I'm fighting next. And the UFC told me that it's going to be after the title fight, which I think is good news. So I'll probably be doing a restock here pretty soon when I get a scheduled fight.
Okay, and so we'll leave it at that. Are you comfortable with the fact that this title fight happens in March? Let's be honest, unless you're Aljamain Sterling, you're not turning around in 2 months, right? You're probably coming around in 4, 5, 6 months. That means August, September for you. That means a year out. Is this okay with you?
That's not ideal, but if it means having an opportunity at being what I've tried to be, which is a world champ for how long, then yeah, absolutely worth the wait.
Okay. By the way, last quick one. Aljo at 45. Does he do well?
Who?
Aljamain Sterling at 145. Does he do well?
Yeah, I think that he'll do pretty good against Qatar. I think, or Cater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he'll do pretty well. I think he's a massive guy in general. It's definitely going to be a tough one. He's not going to have that really pretty significant size advantage, which he does in the division now. But yeah, I think that he'll do good. I think that, Aljamain's a smart guy, like he's a good problem solver and he's a good fighter. And I think that he'll do just fine. I don't know how many years he still wants to fight for, but yeah, I think that he'll do just fine.
Pleasure as always, Cory. Looking forward to seeing you back in no time, and keep up the great stuff all over the place. It's really great to see.
Cool. Thanks, Ariel. I'll talk to you later, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yes, always. There he is, the great Cory Sandhagen. And yeah, he probably hit it right on the head, right over there. Just a lot of fun. The type of guy you want to root for. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it very much. Hey, if you like this video, give us the old thumbs up. Subscribe as well. You could get many more of these videos on the channel, so please do that. We would love you forever if you did so.